For many people, going out to a bar on a Friday night is a great way to unwind from a long week of work. But what if you found yourself assaulted and maybe charged with crime because you kissed the cute stranger that bought your vodka cranberry? This was the reality for the patrons at the Stonewall Inn in Greenwich Village on June 28, 1969. They came looking for a good time on a Friday night and left with a burning desire for revolution. As a member of the LGBTQ community, I've studied a lot of queer rights, and I've been very impressed by the impact that the Stonewall riots have had on our society today. The events that took place before, during, and after the Stonewall riots created the spark of the fire that is now the LGBTQ rights movement. The environment in New York before the riots took place were critical to them existing. David Canfield says that in 1969, the very existence of queer people was illegal in America. McCarthy et al. In their article Reclaiming Stonewall explained that at the time in New York, gay customers could legally drink in bars, but kissing and dancing were deemed disorderly conduct. They clarified that police justified arrests in gay bars with the 3-article rule. Basically, you had to be wearing at least 3 articles of clothing that pertained to your gender at birth. David Canfield states that they couldn't gather publicly or show affection without facing a nightstick. Aside from these unfair laws, the U.S. had gone through a lot of recent events that left people on the edge of their seats. Charles Kaiser explains that it was suddenly clear that the U.S. wasn't going to win the war of Vietnam. At the same time, MLK was assassinated, as well as Robert F. Kennedy. There were also protests taking place at the Democratic National Convention that led to the unrest at the time. In the social studies journal, Varga et al. Explains that the very morning of the Stonewall riots, Judy Garland was buried at her funeral, who was a popular LGBTQ icon. Because of this climate that took place before the riots, when the police raided the Stonewall Inn, the residents inside were not going to give up without a fight. David Canfield explains the Stonewall Inn was a mafia-owned dive bar in Greenwich Village in New York. Why was it owned by the mafia? The mafia saw an opportunity for profit when LGBTQ everywhere came and flocked to New York to have a safe place to dance and drink. Canfield also explains that people of all genders and sexual orientations flocked to Stonewall as a refuge, as they couldn't gather and celebrate themselves anywhere else without facing the fury of the police. When the police assaulted this establishment at 2 a.m., the residents inside were not going to go down without a fight. Martin Boyce, who was a local resident at the time of the riots, was actually there when they were happening. He said that it started with one person fighting back, which led to 2 and 3 and 4, and suddenly the police were surrounded. However, he did describe it as, quote, the most joyous riot you had ever seen, end quote. McCarthy et al. Explained that the Stonewall patrons had no inherent obligation to each other. Quote, some of them probably didn't even like each other, but in the heat of collective oppression, they chose to fight side by side. These outcasts danced in the face of danger, refusing to be anything else but free. This set off a chain of riots all around New York City and eventually the world. LGBTQ people were tired of being punished for being themselves. Now, over 50 years after the Stonewall riots, its effects can still be witnessed to this day. Because of the riots, multiple gay organizations have popped up all over the U.S. Charles Kaiser explains that before the riots, there were only about 12 or so gay rights organizations that existed in the country. However, now afterwards, he explains that, quote, suddenly there were new gay organizations popping up all over, end quote. For example, Canfield explains that the efforts of the people involved in the riots have led to the creation of the Inclusive Gay Liberation Front, which is a unit for collective action, passionate demonstrations, and finally, the first Gay Pride March, which took place none other than in Greenwich Village, 1 year after the Stonewall riots. McCarthy et al. Says, quote, the past 5 decades have seen a remarkable change in attitude towards sexual and gender minorities in the U.S. Gay marriage is now officially legal in every single state. and gay rights organizations continue to fight discriminatory laws every single day. Gay people have been gone from being seen as mentally unstable and insane to just another minority in the US. Varga et al. Says that on June 24th, 2016, the Stonewall Inn actually became the first US monument dedicated to LGBTQ history. Obviously huge. It's clear that the Stonewall riots really sparked the fire that's now the LGBTQ rights revolution. But we still do have a really long way to go. Trans people are killed every single year, queer kids are bullied in school every day, and people still face discrimination in the workplace for their gender orientation or their sexual preferences. According to Timothy Patrick McCarthy, quote, "If the legacy and inheritance of Stonewall mean anything, it's that our fight is far from over, and that the collective struggle for liberation for everyone must continue. If all men are created equal under our US Constitution, then I say let them be treated as such." Thank you.